I know. Welcome.
Yes, guys. Woo, we are so excited. So I don't think I heard the like good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're from. Welcome.
There
We're
you
just
go.
jumping right into it.
Thank you. Thank you. We are ready to party, you guys. It's really good to see you. Hello, Dave, Jonathan, Forrest, Zane in person.
In person.
Little high five.
Yeah.
This is too good to be true. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so it's container time.
It's more container time. We are back with the container crew. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Dave.
Looking at you, Dave. I know. He's like the leader. You have the hat. Container. What would the container hat look like?
I don't know.
Like this?
Probably.
I think the container hat looks like a head in a jar.
That's a Tupperware.
Wait a minute, that
Yeah.
got a little dark.
It was like a little sound symbol, yummy. Okay, so carry on. All right, so I mean, we're talking about containers, but what is kind of like the sub topic? Where are we going with this, Dave?
Yeah, so today we thought we'd just be kind of general. So one of the things that we did recently is we've kind of revamped the CIQ website, which is exciting. So, go check it out. Yeah, it's got a new look and a bunch of new content. And one of the things that we did during that effort is that we came up with a list of frequently asked questions about Apptainer and containers in general. And we put that up on the website. And we thought we would just sort of, do a little tour through that and be very general and just maybe have a few demos on some of the topics and kind of go through that.
That'd be great. I actually haven't seen the frequently asked questions, but I may have to go start posting my own questions in there and see if I can get some answers.
Yeah, there's actually several new things on our website and several more things coming down the line here.
That's right.
So that's definitely something to go check out at ciq.com for sure. Okay, so what are we going to do? I mean, we kind of like passed over introductions. Do you want to do that, Dave? You want to just let everyone know who you is?
I feel like it's 2024 and we probably should.
Okay, it's right. It's a new day.
It's a whole new
year. It's a new month. We are, and we're ready. We're ready to party.
Is this our first webinar of the year?
No, we did last week.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we were there last week. Yeah.
I was there?
Maybe. In spirit. We were there in spirit.
Yeah, I think Greg Sowell did one with some Ascender automation stuff, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're always doing a lot of cool stuff around here. All right, Dave. So say hi. Tell us who you are, what you do.
I will, but I want you guys to go first. I want to know where you're at and what's going on, Rose and Zane.
Okay. So this is not a fake background. This is a real window, and this is real snow on top of this building that came down last night 6 inches because we had a bet, and I actually got out a measuring tape at the hotel last night. I was like, how many inches do you think this is?
But I think you measured it before it finished. It looks more like 8 this morning. There's more.
Do you have a measuring tape right now?
No, but we can go back and get one.
Okay, we're going to have to remeasure then. Okay. So anyway, when I last measured it, there was 6 inches of fresh powder that came down on us. We were at the hotel together. We were having a good time. We opened the door. We were did bocce ball down at the hotel. We were having a good time, having food and water. And the door opened and there was a blizzard and the snow was coming in and we went out. We made snowballs. And I got Zane, you guys. I got him right in the gut side. Yes, in the kidney area. I was feeling very powerful. So we are in Reno, Nevada. This is where CIQ's main office is. I think we have another office as well.
In Seattle.
In Seattle, exactly.
Bellevue,
So
not
this
actually
was
in Seattle, in Bellevue.
Bellevue.
Mm-hmm.
This is the OG office here in Reno. So
the big office.
The big office. So
that's right.
Hopefully you guys can come down and enjoy it. And you can see I'm very excited about the snow. I'm from the Bay Area, California. The only snow that we get is once every 10 years, we'll get just a little, and everyone goes, oh my God. So yeah, to be where there was 6 inches of snow that came down and then wake up and it's so beautiful. And of course I'm eating the snow on the walk down here. They're like, don't eat the snow, Rose.
She was eating snow.
That seems ill-advised.
So, yes, that is where we are. And
fantastic.
Yes, it's super fun.
No, it's great. We actually have sales team and several other people here just hanging out, spending some time together, getting ready for 24. So it's been a great week.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that we have, nailed down what it is that you guys are looking for. And we are always open to iteration. And we want to know what our customers, our clients, our community is wanting from us. I mean, obviously we provide a lot, right? So you go to the website and you kind of listening to these webinars, that, not just Apptainer, right? Which is the containers, but we got the werewolf, we got Rocky, we got Mountain, we got Ascender, like there's a lot going on. So if you guys, you guys have, questions, you want to know about anything, like please let us know. Reach out to us on the website. And
ask questions now. Comment.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah, that's true. We are live. Don't eat the yellows. It's. You think that you wouldn't have to be told that, but actually we stopped on the side of the road. We were stuck in a blizzard with my son like years ago. And he totally like on the side of the road got up and my brother was laughing. He was like, James, do you not see that? Okay, I'm sorry, kid. We're live.
That was awesome.
I'm sorry. It's totally rude. I take it back.
Back to containers.
Yes. So Jonathan, you're off mute. Who he is?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Anderson. I'm a solutions architect with CIQ. Work with Dave and Forrest here. And I'm eager to both hear what some of our customers frequently ask questions about Apptainer are and learn about that. But also, if anyone watching has any questions of their own, please put them in the chat. We'd be happy to talk about those as well. Your questions are frequent as well, I'm sure. There are no small or foolish questions here.
Forrest, I haven't seen you in, I feel like it's been months.
It's probably been a little bit. I've been around the webinar for a second, but
it's been a while. It's like it was SC was the last time I actually saw you.
It's been a little bit insane. We haven't been on a meeting, a call, anything like that. We had our soft close, stuff like that. So good to see you again.
Good to see you. Introduce yourself, man.
My name is Forrest Burt. I'm a solutions architect here at CIQ with Jonathan and Dave. I'm a certified container enjoyer as well. I got started in containers working at my previous institution, deploying software in them for researchers, stuff like that. But I am a huge fan of Apptainer. Been using it for a while, and excited to see. Oh, there we go. Excited to see.
You got the sticker, so it's like it's official.
Uh-oh.
What's going on over there?
Nope, he has a full certified Apptainer rack.
Here's the one on my rack. I've got.
That's awesome.
I'm a fan. So yeah, excited to see what we have to present today.
Let's dive in, Dave. Let's ask questions.
And I've got no Apptainer stickers handy to show off, which is super lame. I feel bad now.
You're just a living, breathing Apptainer sticker, right?
Yeah.
So wait a minute. He can find a llama, but he can't find an Apptainer sticker.
Oh yeah. You know what? We got to make something Apptainer that's cool for the kids.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, marketing, get on it.
So yeah, I'm gonna dive in here and just kind of go through the frequently asked questions that we have up here on the website now. But yeah, so I kind of put this list together and I was talking it over with some of the other solutions architects, and I think Jonathan was the one that was like, what is a container? Like I hadn't even thought about stuff like that, but obviously that's the kind of stuff that we should also have in here. So if there's other stuff that's obvious that gets asked a lot or that you have a question about and you didn't think of, please like put something in the comments or, like Rose said, send us a message and we'd be happy to answer those questions and maybe put them up on the website as well. But yeah, so the first one is just like, what is a container? And, this is something that I tend to kind of gloss over because I work with containers so much that I kind of forget that just some people, they might be new and that's totally fine. But you can go through all the technical kind of explanation of what a container is, or you can just kind of think about what it's good for and, what the concept is. And I think that's easier. So the concept is just a container allows you to create a new environment, basically. And commonly what they're used for is to stick an application or a service into a new environment along with all of its dependencies. And that when I say all of its dependencies, I mean its entire file system, environment variables, everything. And then you can run it with all those dependencies and it makes it super portable, reproducible. There's a lot of advantages to doing that. So that's in a nutshell, kind of like what is a container. So I don't know if anybody else has any comments on what a container is, and maybe my explanation is a little too shallow.
One
Or
thing that I like to point out, just to help people with kind of understanding terminology and what people mean in different contexts, is to differentiate a container image from a running container. Sometimes people, when they say container, they mean like that ephemeral idea of an environment that is executing and has a program running in it. And Apptainer actually makes that a little bit more straightforward to think about, because the container image is just a file that's on your file system that you can run just like any other program. Some other container ecosystems and environments, that image just kind of exists. It's like the cloud. It's out there somewhere. It's in a registry, or it's in a cache somewhere in your system. And it can be useful to understand that there's a container image, which is all of the instructions and the data that is packaged up and ready to go, and then the container as it is executing on your system.
Maybe I shouldn't ask a question. I don't want to steal any thunder. I'm a little. There are a lot of different container formats out there, right? There's a few major ones, right? But Apptainer itself doesn't really care. It can pull in from any of those, right? So that ephemeral thing that you want to run that lives off in the cloud, like Jonathan said, in a registry, you can pull in even if it's not an Apptainer container.
Yeah, and even make it concrete. You can make it be an Apptainer container image just on your file system and make it a little bit easier to work with.
Forrest, you came off mute.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I was just going to reiterate, yeah, you can take essentially these containers that exist in some other ecosystems as ephemeral layers and compress those all together into an actual tangible on-disk movable image with Apptainer. So you end up with basically treating all of your containers not as something that's managed by like a system service, but you end up treating them as files on disk that you then run commands against like you would anything else. I find it useful to differentiate containers and VMs, not to steal anyone's thunder, but just to mention. A VM is a whole virtual computer running with its own kernel, its own hardware stack, that type of thing. It's got a whole dev tree that is representing all of its devices and things like that. A container, it also, most importantly, has its own kernel that it's executing on. A container, just very, very high level, is essentially swapping out the user space versus this kernel space of your system. So while you're still maintaining the same kernel when you're running a container, you might be swapping out like the user space components because you're using this container. And so in the end, you're not creating any new hardware, especially in Apptainer, where it just brings in a lot of the existing hardware from the computer. We can talk about that in a little bit, but it integrates like these NVIDIA devices, things like that within the container itself. Just uses the ones the host already provides. Like I said, you're running your own kernel, you're running your own device tree. When you have, I think I lost my train of thought, but that's essentially what I was trying to say. You're running your own, or you have like devices, you have a kernel, stuff like that, all within a computer or a virtual machine. A container is just a hot swappable user space that uses what's already there as far as the kernel and the hardware devices go. And it's not like running something entirely separate than what's already on that system. It's using essentially the kernel space components that are already there, but just swapping out a user space on top of it.
Thank you, Forrest.
yeah, well, I think that's really cool too that you came up with that, because that was kind of like the next question that I have on the frequently asked questions is like, what's the difference between a container and a VM? And you just encapsulated it really nicely. Yeah. And once again, there's like, you can explain things from a technical perspective, or you can explain things from a user's perspective, like when would I use one or the other? And from a user's perspective, it's like, well, containers are lightweight and fast. And once they get started up, which takes, milliseconds, they execute at bare metal speed, depending a little bit on your platform that you're using and so on. But versus VMs that, there's a lot that goes into how performant a VM is going to be, but it's never going to be as performant as VM as bare metal pretty much. But VMs are more flexible. right? You can run Windows in a VM on your Linux laptop or vice versa. You can't really do that with containers.
With the VM, you're tapping more into those like hypervisor type features than you are like the more user-facing components and software applications that a container is meant to provide access to.
I mean, could you though? Like, could you put all of those things inside of a container, like the kernel and its own libraries and all those other
Not the
things?
kernel.
You can put it in the container.
You can put it in there, but it's not.
It's not going to do anything. It's not going to do much.
Well, that, you know, it's cool though, because you can put it in the container and then you can provision a system with it using Werewolf.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why we use the term container to refer to Werewolf's node images, because we are building a container just like Apptainer, but we install a kernel in it, and then Werewolf knows how to pick that up and use it. But it's not running as a container at that point. It's just using the container image.
And this kind of makes a good side point about kind of the security of containers. When you're inside of it, you're obviously making changes to whatever kernel is running that is basically impossible because it's underlying technical aspects. But the container, the essential point, the container can't change what's running on the system itself. It can only change what the users see is running on that system and what applications they have access to. So, for example, even if you did have, some type of situation kernel in a container, there'd be no way to get the host to switch over to that because especially with Apptainer, where you have a lot of kernel flags and things like that are applied to the running of containers that make any type of permissions escalation impossible beyond what the user already has access to. It becomes really difficult for a user to do anything with that container malicious on the system. It essentially becomes a layer for them to run in a trusted manner their untrusted applications that they might want to bring in a container.
And we do have a question. David's a good one, actually. From David Rush, talking about mapping ports from processes within the container to the actual host. I think this comes up quite a lot. It's something that you typically want to be able to do, right?
Yeah. Hey, David, it's good to see you, to hear from you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the frequently asked questions in here. I've phrased it a little bit differently. It's on the website. I think I'm scrolling down to see how can I access ports for running services inside my container. And this is one of those questions that a lot of times I get, when I'm doing, like when I'm running a class or something, and there's students there that are used to using another container platform like Docker or Podman. They're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm starting up services inside the container. How do I actually get at them? How do I access the ports? And with Apptainer, it's laughably easy because by default, Apptainer does not do any network virtualization at all. It doesn't enter a new network namespace. So because of that, if you start, a service running on, port 8888, for instance, within your container, and then you start a new window and you try to access 8888 on the host, there it is. The port it's the same because there's no network virtualization, which is happening. Now, this is an advantage for the majority of HPC users who want to do things like spin up Jupyter notebooks or, spin up maybe an RStudio server or something like that on a compute node, and then they want to access it. And they don't, necessarily, want to try to configure the network to access it. They just want to access it. It would be a disadvantage if you were trying to use containers in the way in which a lot of times containers are used over in the cloud native space for microservices. So if you were trying to orchestrate a bunch of containers into a bunch of microservices to work together to provide an application, then, the fact that each one of the containers that you've loaded up on, a single VM are all sharing the same network with the VM, that would be a disadvantage. And so that's one of the reasons why Apptainer kind of excels in the HPC sphere and is, less widely used over in the cloud native sphere, where a lot of this Apptainer technology originally got started.
Dave, you mentioned that Apptainer doesn't have any network isolation by default. I think it can have it though, and if you do create an isolated network for your Apptainer, can you still map ports like that to get in and out of your isolated network?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up for a more complete answer. I was going to mention that too, and then I forgot. You can, so you can't, so you can enter a new network namespace as an unprivileged user with Apptainer. And when you do that, all it really does is it walls off your container from the host network, and that's pretty much it. So it basically just breaks your network. What you need to do then is you need to configure network interfaces inside the container to be able to do things like port mapping and stuff like that. And that's all privileged operations within Apptainer.
That's what I was going to ask. If it's privileged, do you get access to the only non-privileged ports, or can you actually? But if you're having to go back and do it as a privileged user, then you obviously do get access to the privileged ports.
Yeah, you have to do everything when it comes to networking within Apptainer. If you want to do anything other than just like break the network, which you can do as an unprivileged user, if you want to actually do any real work, you have to be a privileged user to do
Okay.
it. And once again, that it kind of goes back to that's not really a focus of Apptainer. It's not something that Apptainer is really trying to provide. So it's not something that's really been a focus of development.
Yeah, and that's true. Like you talked about the convenience reasons of wanting to run something like a Jupyter notebook and just have it there and not have to worry about mapping ports. But it's also part of the performance characteristics of Apptainer too. A lot of the performance degradation in kind of a cloud native container environment comes from the flexibility. Excuse me, the flexibility of all the network isolation and having to do I/O through the virtual stacks that connect your isolated network from the to the outside world. So yeah,
We
another
use the
reason why
phrase a
Apptainer's a good
lot.
fit for HPC.
Sorry to talk over you, Jonathan. We use the phrase a lot, and I'm going to jump into it right now because it's another one of the frequently asked questions: integration over isolation. We kind of throw that around a lot, and that's kind of like one of the aspects that we're talking about when we throw that phrase around. So within HPC, obviously the P stands for performance. So you're really concerned about performance when you're looking at high performance computing. And so in order to ensure the optimal performance, we, with Apptainer, we tend to focus on either integration over isolation, or if you like, intelligent integration, where we don't just assume that everything should be virtualized, but instead we try to pick and choose what we virtualize and match that to the normal HPC user. What's the use case that is going to be most widely applicable to an HPC user, and let's just virtualize the stuff that's necessary for that.
You don't have another one. I have a question for you, Dave.
Shoot.
So at some point you were working on being able to, and if I remember correctly, were you trying to VNC into an Apptainer container, like actually running an X server inside the container? And
Sure. Yeah, we do that. That's possible.
have you seen people do it? Like, is there a reason to do it other than I can think it's pretty cool? But is there a use case for it?
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, one use case would obviously be just to have a desktop within a container, which is running on like a compute node or something like that. So, that's one reason to VNC in. Another big use case is, and this stuff gets kind of complicated, and honestly, it's a little bit hard to instantiate, but it can be done. Another use case is that sometimes you want to, visualize graphics that are complicated. You want to render three-dimensional graphics that have like shading and texture and all kinds of stuff like that. Exactly, because I can. Sometimes that's the reason. And so, or, going with the because I can thing, maybe you just want to prove that you can play video games on a compute node. And so when you do that, you need to be able to render graphics using the GPU on the compute node, and then you need like a transport to be able to ship those graphics back to your local system. And within Linux, there's not a whole lot of ways to do that. One of the most, well, definitely the most common way to do that is to use a specific type of VNC called Turbo VNC, which has been optimized to try to, and I'm going to, plug Daryl Commander, the guy who maintains Turbo VNC here. So one way to do that is to use something called Turbo VNC, which basically just takes JPEGs and compresses them and ships them back to your system really quickly. So it's something that can be, rendered remotely and then shipped back to you. And then this is a VNC client that allows you to do that. So that's one reason to do that.
Very cool. Thank you.
And and there can be applications. So I come from a neuroimaging background or a neuroscience background, which includes neuroimaging. And there can be applications that like visualizing the data is part of the analysis. And it really, to avoid shipping the data back and forth a bunch and wasting a lot of time and a lot of bandwidth, it can be really important to visualize it where it's being analyzed. And so that there can be applications for which this is really kind of necessary. Molecular modeling is another application that you might have to visualize in the same place where you're actually doing analysis.
Very cool. Thank you, Dave.
So where are we at on this list? How many questions and answers are there? Just curious.
Did we even start on the list?
I know.
feel
Are
like
we
I
listening?
derailed some of it.
There's kind of a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I have a couple of demos that I would like to kind of show just because they're fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we could kind of do that. So one of the questions that kind of popped up, it popped up in the community recently, and I've seen it pop up several times before. And so because of that, I decided to go ahead and do a frequently asked question on it and try to answer it. But the question is, all right, well, I've just downloaded this container from Docker Hub or something, and I'm trying to run some software inside of it, and I can't find the software. I don't see it anywhere. So where is it? How do I find it? Well, this is not, you can run into this problem for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons which is kind of common is one that I'll kind of show here. So I've got this little demo environment set up, and I have this directory called hidden files. So let me go ahead and CD into that. And if we look here at,
Wait, we were on mute. You have to repeat that.
I was saying, I like how you already have your shortcuts for LL set up, your aliases.
oh yeah. So I'm gonna look here at yeah. So this is actually just running on my my local machine, but the browser is providing SSH, which I know is kind of freaks Jonathan out, but whatever. This is a browser with SSH. One time I did this and you were like, what? Anyhow, if we look at the definition file for this container, I want to point out a few different things. Number one, I'm building this container from a Rocky Linux image that I originally built from the Rocky Linux mirrors. And I'm checking the fingerprint when I download this from Docker Hub. So even though I'm using Docker Hub as like a place to store this base image, I'm not putting any trust in Docker Hub or in the authors of any upstream images when I build this base image. This is basically all just Rocky mirrors and trusting myself that I did this properly. All right, but that's an aside. The thing that I want to show here is, number one, I'm adding a user called hidden inside my container. I'm creating a new user inside the container when I build the container, which is usually, this is an unusual thing to do with Apptainer. I think it's a less of an unusual thing to do with Docker or Podman or something, but it is kind of unusual. But sometimes you'll run across stuff like this. And I'm just showing in the build that the hidden user has a new home directory, and then I'm creating a couple of executable just bash scripts. I'm putting one in that new hidden user's home directory, and it's just going to echo out this message to say that this script is run from the hidden user's home directory. And then I'm creating another script, and I'm putting that in /root. And this is the kind of thing that can cause a lot of havoc and confusion for users when they convert, especially when they, if this kind of thing is done within a Docker file and then the user is pulling that from Docker Hub into Apptainer, they might be confused as to why they can't find things. So let's look at this really quick. So now let's say I do an Apptainer shell. I've already built this, so I'm not gonna go through the exercise of building it again. But let me go ahead and shell into it, and then let's say I want to run that user.sh script I made. Well, that's not gonna run because it's not on my path. But let me try to find it. So I'm gonna say, okay, what was it? Hidden user.sh. Oh, I don't have permissions to actually access this. So if I look at it, the home directory is there, but it's owned by somebody else. It's owned by nobody now because the UID that this was assigned to when I created the container doesn't exist on this system. So Apptainer has just said, okay, well, that's going to be owned by nobody. And I don't have permission to actually get in there and do anything with it. Okay. So I, if this was like a suite of software that was actually supposed to be installed in a user's directory, you might think about, somebody might have created a service account and dumped it all in there. Well, this can shoot yourself in the foot because you might not have permissions to actually access that service account.
Yeah. Can you like run ID and just show make explicit who you're running as and why you're running as that user?
Yeah. So this is kind of an idiosyncrasy, or not an idiosyncrasy. It's actually a core architectural design decision of Apptainer, is that you are the same user inside the user as you are outside. You might have noticed up here that I was demo user. That's my real UID on the system, 1001. And if I look at Etsy password, so here I am. I'm demo user, and that entry was appended to Etsy password to create me in the container when I ran the container. But here's this other user whose files I'm trying to access. They're the hidden user, and their UID is 1000. So because our UIDs don't match up, this doesn't work. Now, this can cause all kinds of foolishness, right? This depends a lot on how your system is configured too. So you might be running this at home, and you might have you might have no problem actually accessing this, even though it's in the home hidden directory. And that might be because your UID might be 1000 on the host. And so you might actually have permissions to access this. Or it can also depend, I've found, on how your system is configured as far as user namespaces go. So I haven't completely run this down, but I was trying to do this on a different system, and I found that I didn't have any problem accessing this. And I think it was because how UIDs were being assigned inside the container and outside the container through the user namespace Linux kernel feature. So in any case, you might run into this problem, and you might not, but it's something definitely to be aware of.
Dave, I'm forgive me if this is getting a little bit too much in the weeds, but I'm confused why it's showing up as nobody instead of just hidden, since hidden is in that password file there.
Once again, it might be the way in which I've got this configured. I don't know.
Okay.
It's probably got something to do with user namespace and the way in which user namespaces are configured on my system.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
All right. So I'm going to exit this. And so, if I go ahead and try to access that file that I put in roots directory, you're probably not surprised I can't do that either. Let me go ahead and exit this, and I'm going to try to shell in as fake root. Let me do that, because that should give me the permissions to access. Let me pull this to the. That's not found here. Okay, let me go ahead and try to access that script now. So if I do that now, not user, let's do home hidden. Okay, so now I can run that hidden.sh because now it says that I am root inside. I used the fake root option when I entered the container, and now I'm root inside the container. And so now obviously I've got permission to access these files. Let me go ahead and try to run that other that root.sh that I created. It says there's no such file or directory. Why is that? Okay, let me try to look and see what's in root. Well, what's in root now is all the stuff which is in, I just exited the container, my home directory. So it has taken root, or my home directory as demo user, and it's kind of made that look like it's the root directory, right? Even if I'm not going to do it right now, but even if I entered this container as root, so if I did like sudo apptainer and then issued the container command, what it would do then is it would take the real roots directory on the host system and overlay that into the directory at runtime. So you're going to find it's really difficult to try to find that software which was installed in /root. And that's kind of a common place, not real common, but that's a place where you might find that software gets installed inside the container /root. And this can be a real problem for you. So if you're confused, if you're trying to figure this out and you don't really know, where this stuff was installed, one thing that you can do really quick and easy after you've downloaded a container is you can convert it basically to a sandbox, which is just a bare directory. And you can do it with this command. And once you've done that, you can see that hidden files has now been created, and I can cd into hidden files root, and I can find that's where my software is. And so that can at least give you a clue as to, this is where the software has been installed. This is why it's confusing. I need to maybe change the permissions on this root directory so that anybody can run stuff from within it, or I need to, recreate the container and install the software somewhere else, or, there's various different things you can do.
This catches me off guard all the time because I can be kind of a file system stickler. I think the normal thing to do in kind of the OCI sphere, the web services sphere, is to mount or create things in just a / application name or whatever. Just create directories in root, not in root's home directory, but in root, and then manage them there. But when I'm making an Apptainer definition file, I want to just store stuff in root's home directory because it makes sense to me because root is building it. And then I get caught off guard that I can't access that because you're not running as root when you are running the container normally. I think there's an option, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you can tell Apptainer to not mount the home directories when you execute. Is that a runtime thing, or is that a configuration setting only?
That's a runtime, so there's no home. So let's see. I actually haven't played around with what would happen if I used fake root and no home together. Am I still in the same? Yeah. Fake root, no home. Where am I? Oh. So now, presumably, let's look and see what's in root's home directory. See, I think what actually happens here, I might be proved wrong here, so maybe I should just be quiet. I'm going to be quiet, and then we'll see. Okay. No, it does work. So I think what happens, though, if you do that without fake root, is that it creates a new empty directory for you, and bind mounts that into the home directory. So if this happened to be in, I guess, 1001's home directory, UID 1001's home directory, I think that this actually might be confusing as well, because you might find that the home directory is empty, and you might expect to see,
even if there was stuff in the container in that location.
Right.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, so basically my recommendation is install stuff in opt. I think opt is usually the best method to, make sure that you don't run into these types of problems.
Do you still find that people stick stuff in opt? I feel like that kind of went away for a while. Everybody was like anti-opt all of a sudden. I still do. That's where
I like opt.
Okay.
I don't, honestly, I do not like the way this, I mean, there's probably a Linux guru who's going to yell at me about this, but I do not like the way that when you install software within Linux, it takes your configuration files and dumps them in Etsy, and it takes your, your binaries and dumps them in bin or user bin or something. And it spreads everything out across the file system, because then it's okay, now I want to uninstall something. How the heck do I do that? I hope that whoever created this created some, uninstall script along with it that got installed with it, or I hope that I use DNF to install it, or you know what I mean. So I like opt because it just keeps everything. I mean, that's the point of it, right? That's the point of opt, is that when you've got the entire tree is supposed to be in one place underneath. That's what you do, is you install an opt.
Yeah, and I see opt because the OpenHPC guys, their software repository targets it. All the applications you install with OpenHPC go into /opt/share or something like that, and then that's expected to be mounted across your cluster.
There's also user local, but if you use user local, I mean, I think that might be kind of an expectation too, is that you're going to have like user bin and user Etsy, and that things are going to be spread out across there. So, but you don't have to do that. You can just install everything within a subdirect for a particular program within a subdirectory of user local. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to get Linux gurus yelling at me about.
That's why I ask. I feel like there are people that are very anti-opt, and I've always used opt. So that's why I'm just curious where you guys fall on that one.
I'm pro opt.
You heard it here first. Cool.
I like it.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we could probably. Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry, I was just to say there is one other demo I've got prepared, but I don't want to cut off your train of thought, Rose.
Well, yeah, I think that we are going in different directions here. I was like, we could talk forever, but I think we kind of got to like wrap it up at some point. But if you think that this demo is like really important to like wrap up everything that we've been talking about, I think that you should go ahead and do it. But
it's totally
I think
not.
Yeah, okay.
But it's fun.
This is not a life or death.
I think I want to do it anyway. It'll be quick. One of the other frequently asked questions that actually has kind of a different answer these days than it used to is, can you run nested containers? And so I just wanted to show a quick demo. So that's become so once again, this is going to depend also on the configuration of your system a little bit.
Okay, what did you say? Can you run what in a container?
Nested containers.
Nested containers. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So can I run Apptainer inside Apptainer?
Yes. Can you?
And the answer used to be, nah, not really, because Apptainer requires privilege to run. And within a container, we explicitly block your ability to escalate privileges because of a security, as a security feature. That's changed recently because Apptainer now relies on user namespaces to elevate privileges, and these can be nested. And yeah, you can run nested Apptainer containers in their default configuration, like in Apptainer's default configuration, without any problems. So let me just.
So is this also a because I can and I want to, or is there like any reason that anyone would want to do such a thing?
Both. So once again, there are practical applications that will require you to run nested containers, but it can also just be because it's cool and I want to show that I can do it.
For example, really quick, not to interrupt your train of thought, Dave, but if you're running like a CI/CD system and you want to be able to, for example, automatically build Apptainers to upload to your container registry, it may be useful to have Apptainer inside of an Apptainer that you can then execute remotely to do like remote container builds. The advantage of this being that then you can also keep your builder image, as a container and make easy updates to it, easy changes. You can deploy it out to have more CI/CD runners if you needed to. They do like Docker in Docker, for example, for some of these CI/CD systems. So this would be really useful in doing like Apptainer and Apptainer for those type of systems as well.
So let me just share my screen real quick. So I've got it ready to go. There we go. And you can see here I've changed to a different directory. And I've got this nested.definition file. Let's just have a look at it real quick. All right. This is kind of a really quick and dirty little thing. So I'm downloading Rocky Linux version 9. That's my base container. And then I'll update it. But I'm installing Apptainer inside of it. And I'm just installing it using DNF. And then my run script is to run a new container. And it's actually Alpine. So you would expect, so I've already created this container. You would expect, if I just shell into this container, and if I do a cat etsy OS release, of course, it's going to be Rocky because this is a Rocky based container. But if I run the container, so now I jumped back out of the container, and recall that with Apptainer, you can run containers just using this kind of cute little heuristic because they're executable. So I'm going to go ahead and run the container. And now, if I cat etcos release, I'm in Alpine. Because when I ran the container,
cool.
Yeah. So when I ran the container, it popped in and executed another Apptainer command to run Alpine from Docker Hub. And this used to be like something that was impossible unless you ran the container as root. But now, yeah, it's in its normal configuration because Apptainer runs without privileges by default. It's easy.
That was cool, man.
That is cool, Dave.
That was cool. Yeah. Did you like?
You ever try to see how many you could do until it just breaks?
Is that a yes? Or now it's a challenge.
Somebody's going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right now. It's happening right now.
Yeah. I assume you could do that pretty easily in a loop, and you probably run into I'm gonna assume that you're gonna run into a limit on the number of nested namespaces that you can enter that's imposed by a configuration within the Linux kernel.
Very cool.
Dave Rush, so when you build the Rocky container, the container was already built with a nested Alpine container?
No, let me go back. Let me show you again. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen once again. If I can get it back up. So no, so it actually, what it did is, right. So it's built from a Rocky Linux base, and then I installed Apptainer within it, and then the run script. What it does is it executes this Apptainer shell docker / Alpine. So what that does is it says either grab the container, the Alpine container from Docker Hub and run it, or if you've got it cached somewhere, just run it from the cache. In this case,
and it's able to get it out of the cache because it's in your home directory, which is shared, right?
In my home directory, right. And so maybe that's the basis of your question, is that you didn't see the container actually get downloaded when I ran it. That's because I'd already done it before. So if I did Apptainer cache clean, I think it's force. There we go. I just clean my cache out, and then if I ran that container again, now we're going to download Alpine. And there we go.
Very cool. Yeah, that made it a little more visual for me. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Dave.
All the Daves.
All the Daves.
All the Daves.
Dave asking Dave.
Yeah, he's part of the Dave Collective.
That's awesome. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up right now. I think we could probably talk about Apptainer for a really long time. It just is awesome. So thank you for all the work that you guys do in the community, and then of course for our customers as well. So if you want to go through the longer, more extensive list on our website, ciq.com, go ahead. There's lots of questions, answers. If you want to get actually involved in the community, we will put a link to that. There's an awesome Slack channel, Apptainer Slack channel, that all these guys are a part of. And then if there's anything that's kind of outside of that, like special cool stuff or support or training or anything else that you want to do for with your company and your people, reach out to us and let us know. We are more than happy to engage with you and help support you on the Apptainer adventure that we're on. Cool. All right. Well, you guys, Happy New Year, and you're amazing. Thanks for being with us live. We will be back next week, same time, same place.
Less snow.
Well,
for me, it'll be less snow.
It will definitely be less snow, but not by.
I hope it's less snow.
Yeah,
maybe I should have said that. Right. Hold on.
Careful. Awesome. All right, you guys. So make sure that you like and subscribe. We also have a podcast. Yes. Flops and Threads.
Flops and Threads.
Flops and Threads. So make sure you check that out as well. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Zane.
Thank you all.
See you.